So you can eat healthy, you can take your tablets. It's life basically. So it's part of my genetics. So, but a lot of people don't have that, and they can switch that around basically by eating a healthier life, going out, and it's simple food. How did we all do it 50 years ago? I mean, I'll tell you how. You know how many times I went into a restaurant when I grew up in Ireland in Dublin? You know how many times I went to a restaurant up until the age of 18? How many restaurant meals I've had?
Maybe one time in
5 meals.
five meals in
In
18 years.
18 years, I went to a restaurant 5 times.
Wow.
So,
I
and
think I
that just
remember
shows you
going,
my
I
mom
remember
basically
going two
cooked
times when
everything.
I was, yeah. I still remember those two incidents
Yeah,
when
well,
we
yeah,
actually went to a restaurant when by the time I turned 16. In 16, but till the age of
yeah,
16, we went out, like out into a restaurant only probably two times, in that entire period, right? So it's amazing how
yeah.
civilization
So,
is
who was?
changing.
How did you eat?
I think
Yeah. So
we
basically,
yeah we from the subcontinent, I think we are guilty as charged, our because we come from the tropics, a lot of our eating is actually very carnivorous, meaning we eat a lot of carbohydrates, and there's a lot of
yeah,
emphasis on grains, the rice, the wheats, right? And I think when your lifestyles are changing like they're changing right now, those things actually start clogging in your system, and I'm kind of amazed, or I'm impressed. I always thought that you would not be that person who would have had health issues, because I've seen you run on the court all the time, be there doing all the right things by way of squash. So it's rather surprising to know that you had such issues, right? And of course you have also
well,
spoken
yeah.
to
No, I
me
mean, I didn't know.
how did so tell us
Listen,
about that, right?
I've been playing squash all my life.
So what happened? What happened with you as far as your health condition is concerned? What happened there?
Well, it started in 2017. Basically, I was training for the Irish Open or Irish Nationals in 2017, beginning of January, and I had to fly back home to Europe in March. But prior to that, obviously, I always train like 2 months beforehand, and obviously, normally a lot of players start a lot earlier, maybe 3 or 4 months. But obviously, I had a full time job in coaching, so I was fairly busy. But I broke it down, sort of like an intensity training. And for some reason, I think everything just caught up pre-pal. I was just, I did a lot of traveling. I was always in the air, down in the air, traveling here and there, which is another big issue as well for getting blood clots. And I've had a couple of my players have that as well in the past. I never thought about it. I wasn't saying I was young. I was 52 when it happened, but I thought, I'm a squash player. I'm invincible. I train so hard. Nothing can beat me. I mean, not even a heart attack or COVID or whatever. But long story short, I started training, and then I just felt this, not this sensation, this pain in my chest. And it was like somebody stabbing a knife into my heart. But what do squash players have? They have a high density of pain threshold. So pain was, I've always known what pain was compared to any other sport. We basically run till we drop. And that's what I did. And I think that's what kept me going as well. Because a lot of people, where are we now, Prepa? We're sitting in a chair. Where do most heart attacks happen? In the office, where they're sitting there and suddenly they fall over because they're not moving. I was fortunate enough because I was playing squash. I was crouched over in so much pain, and I started moving around, and it was basically all the calc in my arteries was moving around everywhere, and then suddenly it just stopped after 20 seconds, and I could go on again. So that happened 3 times on the squash court in one week because I was training 3 times a week, and then the other 2 times I actually went to the doctors, and this is how sad it is. Basically, I went in. I had 2 interns. My blood pressure was 238/20, and you know how high that is.
Wow.
I should have been basically admitted into hospital. They said, no, you're okay. Take these tablets, go home, and then you can fly home to Ireland and play nationals. So, okay, fair enough. I believe them. I mean, they're doctors. So basically, Prepal, I came home, I called my father, and I said, Dad, I'm coming in tomorrow, flight 177 on Delta, 7:30, Terminal 2, pick me up. As soon as I put the phone down, I had heart attack number 5, and my wife said, that's it. You're not flying, nothing. I'm going to call the ambulance. And then the next day they operated. But what I did to the doctors there, I said, don't put me to sleep. I stayed awake. They operate while I was uncomatose, basically. I was wide awake. So that's how tough I was, because I was scared that they'd screw up. I said, I said to my wife, listen, if I don't come out of here, it was great meeting you and I love you loads. And yeah, that was it. And then luckily I came out after an hour and a half. I think the doctor felt guilty, but I'm not going to mention his name. He's one of the nicest guys ever. But but yeah, no, he basically operated. It took an hour and a half. I had the big screen on the side. I could see where my arteries were clogged. He put 2 stents in it near the widowmaker, and yeah, here I am talking to you now, like $1 million. And obviously, I'm on aspirins every day, blood thinners, cholesterol, whatever, as you do. Welcome to America. But I'd probably stay on the rest of my life, and obviously the quality of life now is so much better than when I did have the heart attack. But I felt when I had those stents in Prepal, I felt like Superman, because I after I got the stents in on Friday, February 17th, 2017, on Monday morning, I went straight to the gym, and I was on the treadmill 3 times a week. They had all these machines on me to check. I mean, the nurses were nearly falling out of their chairs. She says, you got to slow down. I said, I don't have time. I need to play a tournament. So basically, I was training at full smack again. That's how relieved I was. I could breathe again. I couldn't even walk up the stairs. That's how exhausted I was, because my arteries were 95% clogged. So you can
Wow.
imagine walking up the stairs. I had to sit down again, relax. And this was all during an event that I did. I did the Atlanta Open in 2017 in February. It was a week later. With all the stress, I'm like a one-man show organizing everything. I've done enough events. I should be in the Guinness Book of Records for doing the most events in the world. I think I am, actually, but that's
Right.
another story. But anyway, so yeah.
So,
So your health, why your health?
yeah. So,
Well,
let's talk about this, right? We both, obviously, I'm my life didn't allow me to turn pro, unlike you. You were more fortunate than I am. But let's draw parallels between squash and life, right? So, what is squash at a personal level? What are the lessons from squash which actually transfer over to life?
that's a very good question. What I've found out, squash, you always have friends for life. And my database, as you probably know, is global from the last 40 years. Obviously life changes, every year changes drastically. Remember when I started playing, we had no internet, no cell phones. It was all communication. I always keep on going back. Now it's global. You do one like this podcast. You can send this out and the whole world will know about it in one day. In the old days, it wasn't like that. So that in that sense, we're very, very fortunate. The only thing is, it's very up and down with the media. So you've got your good points and your bad points, but obviously, I always take advantage with social media. I always try and take the positives out of it. And the great thing with squash, you can get the word out. Obviously we've got Squash TV on the PSA tour. So basically, it wasn't there 30 years ago. We had nothing like that. So in one way, that is a bonus for us. It goes out to 1.1 billion viewers, the tour, so which is great.
So for me, I think the squash has 4 meanings for me, right? So the number one thing which I learned in squash, of course, squash is unlike any other game where the ball is traveling so quickly towards you, or rather rebounding from the back wall, that you don't have a lot of time to make decisions, right? But you have to trust yourself. You have to repeat a set of things so many times that it gets built into your muscle memory. So that's the first thing, right? It's a lot of neuroplasticity and ability to make split second decisions, which you have to train, right? In life also, you have to do a lot of those things, right? Second thing is, squash is a lot about breathing for me, right? So if you don't breathe well, in life and on the squash court, you're not going to go far. You'll have a very stressful movement on the court. The third thing for me, as far as squash is concerned, is about the choreography, right? It's a dance. It's a delicate dance on the court. You're one and a half, two and a half, two steps away from the ball, never ever running to the ball, but basically, you know, going in the
You're
right
not running
path.
pre-ball.
Say
You're
that
not
again.
running the ball. You see it early.
Yes, yes. So that's the last piece I will tell you is you cannot take the ball eye off of the ball, right? I mean, I used to take a lot of squash lessons from you as well. There's number one thing you would say is pre-pull. If you watch my wrist, if you watch my body, you're gonna miss it. You track the ball, you'll be all fine. So it takes a lot of almost like a meditative state where for 45 minutes of game time you're really watching the ball where it is and how it is doing. So it
Yeah.
brings a lot of focus in your life, and when you step off the court you feel a lot more relaxed, relieved, de-stressed from everything you do in your life, because what you did on the squash court is actually some of the things your mind is actually asking for to detox. And that's what squash is to me. That's the four lessons I take home when I go home. The things I have not done very well on the squash court are, like you said, I've not done a good job at eating. I have not done the work which you, for example, as a pro, has put in. All those 50 laps on the in the swimming pool, or the stretching, or the 6 hours of methodical everyday time which you put in. We guys, we do it for fun, but I think that's where we also have an opportunity to improve.
Well, it's just the intensity. I mean, the intensity of the training now. Obviously, when you're training, obviously, over the last 2 decades, I've always emphasized it doesn't matter if you're a pro or an amateur, you still got to do the training. Now, you got to realize now, squash, half an hour squash is the same as 2.5 hours of racquetball, 3.5 hours of tennis, and 6 hours of golf, and probably 95 hours of pickleball. Okay. So the intensity, we're the fittest guys on the planet. I hate to say it, and I say it all the time. You've seen me basically. Squash, there's no other sport where you get the maximum workout in a short amount of time. So when you play an hour of squash, 55 minutes is pure running. Now, here is a statistic that I learned when I wrote my first book, obviously the only book so far. But I had to, it's all about numbers and facts. People are always intrigued about numbers and facts all the time. So when Nadal played Federer in the 2000, I think it was 2008 Wimbledon final, and it went on for 5 hours, how long do you think that ball was playing in the court for? They played 5 hours, took 5 hours. It was like 300 minutes. They only actually played for 12 minutes. And you're thinking, how could that be? The ball was only 12 minutes in play. And the reason it was like in those days, it was serve volleys. So the rallies were very short. But the downtime, people don't realize, Djokovic bounces the ball like 30 times. Nadal picks his nose or his ears or his back or whatever. He goes like this. They do a serve, ace, basically. Next point, you got 30 seconds. So there's a lot of downtime. In our sport, there's no downtime. Just like badminton in your country, it's very, very big. One of the highest paid athletes in badminton is from India. I can't remember her name. I think she won a silver medal in Rio, basically. And squash should be up there as well, But if they don't have the marketing right, you got to get that word out there, But from a playing perspective, if you don't look at the ball, you're like Stevie Wonder. Basically, you'll never see the ball. So, and it's all about looking. It's all about timing. It's just like the Formula One. Formula One is a thousandth of a second. 100-meter dash is a hundredth of a second, and squash is a tenth of a second. So that
Wow.
tenth of a second where you look away, point is over, or you're going to be in severe trouble trying to get the next point. You're going to be working extra hard. Yeah. So, and these are all the little pointers that I've learned over the last 4 decades, So, I mean, it's a no-brainer, basically, for me. But for somebody that's totally new, that has no idea about squash, and basically goes in, he'll love the sport because he'll get, oh my God, this is an unbelievable workout. So, and I just introduced a fellow sponsor of mine of the sport, and he loves it now. So, and I've got another meeting with him next week. So we'll see where it goes, you know. But he's so intrigued because he never even heard about it. And I said, listen, if you want to lose weight or get in shape, build up. And he's a big lad. He's a 300-pounder, a football player. And yeah, he's totally impressed with it, you know.